the video industry is changing rapidly, and if you were thinking about diving into this as a new career change, you might feel like it's probably the worst time ever, or a very uncertain time to do so. For instance, everyone's now got a really good phone that shoots amazing video, so why would they need a professional? And kids can now edit on their phone and upload things to TikTok and get tens of millions of views. You can't compete with all that. And then AI, of course, now can apparently generate realistic video, or it's going to get there at some point, whatever. But I personally feel that this is one of the best times that we've ever had to dive into this industry, and I'm going to explain why. So first of all, let's talk about how things used to work in video advertising. Basically, a company would, at the start of the tax year, allot a big batch of funds, say £50,000 or dollars or whatever, and they would say, okay, this is the money that we're going to use to advertise our product or service. So first thing that they would do would be that they would contact an advertising agency, and that agency would be compiled of copywriters and art directors and just creative thinkers, and those people would come up with a strategy to advertise that product, be it an ad or a TV ad, a video ad, or billboard ad, or whatever, photo campaign. And then they would pitch that back to the client, and they would say, here's what we think you should do with that money to advertise your product. And then that company would say, great, let's do it. And the next step would be that the advertising agency would contact a production company, a video production company, if it was a video that they wanted to make. And that video production company would then look at the budget, look at the idea, the producer would work out what's needed, how they're going to do it, whether or not it can be done. And then they would book locations, cast, and then of course people like me, freelance camera people or sound recordists or whatever. They would also see the project right through to the shoot, to making sure everyone was fed on set, right through to post-production and getting all the different deliverables that would be required and all the tech checks and for broadcast and all that kind of stuff. So it was a huge big process. But then things started to shift. When the internet really started to kick in, and video on the internet really started to kick in, video ads started to become everything that you see. And today it's more than ever. But what happened was that started to devalue those ads that people were making, because you could spend 50k on an ad, but it's out there in a sea of other content that's much bigger than just the 4 or 5 terrestrial channels that they used to have in the UK, for instance. And so you would start to feel like you're getting less for your money, because your ad is just swimming amongst all of these other ads that are out there. And some of them, they might not be big budget, but they've just got a strong idea, or they've got a catchy idea that's enough to stick in people's heads. So gone then were the days of 150 or 100 grand budgets where, people would get to stay in fancy hotels and eat in fancy restaurants with the clients and the creatives, and spending essentially the company's money on producing something to a high standard, but also with all the benefits that come from a big budget. And companies started to say, like, instead of that, let's just cut out all of their people. And then a strange thing started to happen. They started to reach out to people who were newly enabled by all the new technology, the cameras and the cheaper lights and the cheaper microphones, and people like myself or small teams who could essentially do about 70-80% of what the big teams and the big budgets could do, but could still focus on what really mattered without, the frills. And so that led to production companies and ad agencies kind of getting cut out. Not everywhere, not all the time, but it happened more and more. And I know a lot of people that work in ad agencies, and nowadays they focus on the big clients, they focus on the big money ones, and all the sort of middle stuff seems to have gone now, and it's gone to people like myself. Now, I'm not saying this to sort of brag or say unlucky guys, but I got all the work. It's not a case of that. It's more me just saying that when I started to see that this was happening, when I was working at a production company who in the early 2000s had huge ads, huge budgets. They were all on TV. I remember seeing them when I was a kid. And by the time I joined, all that had kind of started to fizzle out. And I started to think about how things were going to go in the future. So I started to set about learning everything that I could, every element of producing a video. And that takes, I'm comfortable in pre-production and scripting and planning, to shooting and directing, right through to editing and delivery. And because of that, I've carved out my own little niche now that means that clients can directly come to me. And instead of having a 50 grand budget, they might only have a 5 grand budget. But that 5 grand comes directly to me. So it works out well. And this is predominantly how I make my income now. And it's a really nice way to work. And it is that for a number of reasons, but basically there's a real satisfaction that comes with having a wide skill set of things that you've learned and then utilizing all of that stuff to not only secure jobs, but actually carry out jobs and deliver jobs to a high standard. There's a lot of pride involved. And one of the other interesting side effects of all this is that those companies, they used to go to the ad agencies for the ideas. And nowadays, when they come directly to us, we get to come up with the ideas. And quite often, to be honest, the clients that I work with, they've got their own ideas and I'm there to sort of help tune those ideas into something that are actually doable using my own experience of what we can do and what we can't. But I get a huge amount of creative input on most of the stuff that I make. So, I love making movies and music videos and creative stuff, but I still see my advertising work that I do, essentially that's what it is, advertising, promotional material, as very creative and satisfying work. And I love it. And it's this weird kind of side effect that now we have become the trusted creative resource, not just for the image and the sound and the edit, but the actual ideas and the stuff that goes into it. And all of that is chargeable as well. Do you know, it's like if you come up with ideas for the client, you can bill them for that and they don't mind. They are expecting that. So it's a really interesting time. In fact, with all the threats that are coming that I've mentioned, phones, cameras being so capable now, AI, kids that can get huge views on TikTok and all that. With all that stuff, I still feel like that this is the best time to come at this whole video production service industry and choose this as a career. I really do. And if you're interested about turning it into a career yourself, I made a little workbook that can help you with a bit of accountability. So it's basically a 30-day escape plan, I call it. And it takes you from day 1 with no clients to day 30 with your first paid client and your first job in the can and a showreel piece. So download it in the link below, it's totally free. It's just a little very brief exercise to just to start, working out a pathway into how you might switch to a career like this. And obviously I'm building a course at the moment as well, which goes into this in much more detail. And I'm just going over all this stuff on the channel anyway, because I love it. And out of all the people that I know, everyone always says that I've got the best job. And I agree. I'm very happy. And look how smug I look right now. So the final thing I must say is that because the production companies are quite often cut out of the equation right now, they used to be the ones who would find us and connect us with the agencies and with the clients. And now that they're not around, we need to be able to find those clients. And if you want to know how I do that and how I find all my work, then you should watch this video next.